Hello, can you hear me well?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
Hello, Mr. White. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Just give me one quick moment. We'll get straight to it. A very good afternoon.
It's
Joining with me, my name is Mohammed Tawfiq. I am the Partnership Director with the International Center for Strategic Alliances. Joining me today is Mr. Aaron White, Vice President, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Emerging Markets at Nutanix. Now, just to give you a little bit of background for Mr. Aaron White, with over 20 years of international experience in the technology sector, growing companies and sales team within them to deliver exceptional and consistent growth. His track record with multiple examples of doubling and tripling business revenues has led to numerous accolades, including being voted among the top 25 most influential IT executives in the Middle East by Arabian Computer News. His results, particularly at Nutanix, are not entirely down to him, but obviously his teams. He's built some amazing teams and the culture that he's created, a culture that celebrates even the smallest wins and empowers his team to become the best and have the courage to try new ideas. Now, talking about Nutanix, Nutanix runs clouds, apps, data, and services on your terms. Now, Nutanix is one of the biggest global leaders in cloud software and pioneer in hyperconverged infrastructure solutions, making clouds invisible, freeing customers to focus on their business outcomes. Welcome, Mr. White. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, and thank you very much for the very warm introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today.
You're welcome. I must tell you, it is indeed a pleasure having you on board doing the first GES talk with us. I see the accolades that you have are commendable. And without wasting any time, without any kind of further ado, I'm going to straight jump into, because I know you are one of the most busiest persons I've come across. So I'm straight going to dive deep into the reason why we're having this session today. Now, first of all, I would like you to shed more light on what is it that Nutanix does, so we get a better understanding of the organization itself.
Yeah, effectively, Nutanix is here to simplify IT. For too long, IT has been steeped in complexity and sometimes almost something mystical. And that has to change. And about 12 years ago, when Nutanix was formed, its idea was to revolutionize how we do infrastructure today. And as we've grown, how we will do infrastructure in the clouds tomorrow.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's quite crisp but detailed introduction. Thank you so much for that. Now, the topic for our conversation today is it time to reimagine your databases, the strategy itself? So first of all, do you think it's time to reimagine databases?
You know, I think it's a really interesting question. And when I was younger in IT, in the last century, in the 90s. I spent a lot of time working in very technical environments, and at the heart of everything was the database. And if we fast forward now 25 years, this is still the case. The heart of IT is what we say, there can be no IT without a DB.
Absolutely.
So if we think about what does database mean to an organization, this is one of the areas, and perhaps one of the main areas, where you store a company's data, i.e. database, right? And it will be in a database in a structured manner. Now, what we do from an IT professional standpoint is it's incredibly valuable. So there's two important things in any company. First is the people, and the second is the data. So we spend a lot of time making our people as good as we can, right? Because we see that as a competitive difference. And the second thing that companies are looking at is how can they use data as a competitive difference in the market? Because we spend all this time gathering data about how much we sell, who is buying it, what's going to happen to it. We capture all this data, great. But how can we realize insights out of it? And there's many ways that we can start to realize insights out of it, which is also great. But in terms of how we actually manage that data and database, it has pretty much been unchanged since I was much younger. So I think it's probably about time that we did something about that. And that's really when Nutanix has come to play with effectively for us a brand new technology that we call Nutanix Database Services.
I wouldn't agree. I must tell you, I agree very much with what you said, because I don't know if you remember, I think about a few years ago, I think about 4 or 5 years ago is when we learned that data has overtaken oil and gas, right? Data is the new oil and gas. That sentence kind of made headlines, made news, right? And having heard what you said, data capture primarily has been the most important thing people did when it came to databases, right? Now about managing that data, like you said, obviously, that also became a good practice. But like you said, I'd like to learn more. Help me understand. See, from my point of view, what I understand about Nutanix is that Nutanix is the leader in HCI and has been so for several years now, right? Now, with your ability to create invisible clouds, you recently also, I believe, launched a simplified product portfolio, right?
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little on the new product portfolio you have?
Yeah, sure. So what we realized is how customers were utilizing Nutanix technologies. And they broadly fell into 5 areas. So the first one is what we call Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure. So that's providing a complete solution for virtual compute, storage, networking for virtual machines that is typically deployed in private data center or in the public cloud on your choice of either hardware or public cloud, right? So that's Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure and NCI. The next thing that we found people wanting to do was, okay, I'm actually running in multiple clouds. So I've got my private cloud, I've got my AWS cloud, I might have some other cloud. How do I manage that all together seamlessly? So we've introduced a set of technologies that we label Nutanix Cloud Manager, and that provides consistency in terms of how you govern your journey across private and public clouds. Really, really, really cool technology. The next thing we've spoken a lot about today is data, right? So we combined a number of our technologies together to create Nutanix Unified Storage. So, and I think we're the only company who can provide all 3 types of storage, be it volumes, files, or objects, with a single pane of glass management. You don't need to go anywhere else to manage your storage with Nutanix. The fourth one, and one of the areas that we came across where we started from, is end user computing. With all this hybrid working from home, this has been an amazing area for Nutanix for more than a decade. And we put together Nutanix end user computing solutions. And then the 5th one, and then we've hinted at about today, is Nutanix Database Services, where we can manage your databases in hybrid multi-cloud environments from Postgres to Oracle to MySQL and everything in between.
Wow. So you basically are revolutionizing the way data was stored and managed. That's good. Okay. Now, Nutanix Cloud Manager, could you tell a little more about Nutanix Cloud Manager? Because, like you said, I am in one of those confused states where do I use AWS or, public cloud, private cloud, or cloud space? So a little more light on Nutanix Cloud Manager.
Yeah, so let me expand that a little bit for you. Okay, so one of the great things about cloud is that it's easy to use and easy to deploy and easy to spin up servers. One of the bad things about cloud is that it's easy to use, easy to deploy, and easy to spin up services. So actually what you've got there is an ability to have your cost control run away with you.
Right.
Nutanix Cloud Manager, one of the things it does is instrument how much you're spending in a very easy to understand. So, okay, in AWS, I'm spending this much per month. In Azure, I'm spending this much per month. In private cloud, I'm spending this much per month, right? What that gives you is insight into your cost control.
Oh, wow.
So one of the great things with cloud is you can burst, okay? So we can have this elasticity. Well, we talk about the burst bit, but what about the rebound bit, right? How do you claim those resources back to reduce your cost?
Right.
Our technologies absolutely allow you to do that. And we have many use cases where customers are saving millions of dollars a year through smart implementation and smart governance of how they utilize cloud. Because whose interest it is in for you to keep those virtual machines running on the cloud?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Nobody. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you wouldn't. People looked at cloud as a utility, right? So let's look at it. So if you deal with Bill, you're switching on lights, that's fine. Nutanix gives you the ability to switch off the lights when you need them as well.
Absolutely. So it does it by itself, you mean. So basically what I understood when you said, you in fact mentioned how you have case studies. I'd rather call them success stories. Like, these are the feather in your crown. Well,
Absolutely.
Good job done. Okay, now I've got another question for you. Now, I know that Nutanix talks a lot, like literally a lot, about making clouds invisible. Now, your primary focus today, the primary focus of the conversation we're having is to talk about the last solution with database management. Why do you feel it is important?
Yeah, so one thing that's common with any company today is the deployment of new applications. So new ways to look at the business, new ways to deploy new services. And if you think about it, each of those applications requires a database, typically, right? Absolutely. And our research shows that for every database, companies will typically have an average of 10 to 12 copies of that database.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So I would imagine, you would typically have one for production, one for UAT, one for test and dev, and one for retirement. Fine. But it turns out, in reality, people are scared, worried, belt and braces approach, that they keep making copies of the database. Now that leads to a lot of complexity.
Surprising. 12 copies?
Yeah, 12 copies. And that's independent research, right? Now, the other thing is that people want to be able to quickly restore databases. So if something happens, I need to restore it. Now, one extremely large customer who did a database restore before using Nutanix. It took them 27 hours. In that 27 hours, that application, which happened to be one of their primary revenue generators, was unavailable. So that's a serious challenge. Now, Nutanix is able to overcome that, and we can do snapshots and restores in a matter of minutes. So very easy. Then the other thing is associated with downtime is patching, right? Like any software, database needs patching, it needs maintaining. One of the great things that always been with Nutanix, irrespective of our product, is the ability to do seamless online patching without downtime. And one thing that never ends is the absolute need for storage to support these databases. And efficient use of storage and how you manage it is again something that Nutanix has looked at very hard, and it was one of the reasons why we created the technology around Nutanix database management. So these are things that the problem you think you have, you don't really know the extent of it until we start having a really good look at particularly large enterprises infrastructure. So if you're a bank today, or you're a telco provider today, or you're a large retailer, you have this problem. There's no getting away from it. You have this problem because we haven't changed how we manage databases in 30 years. We just keep making copies of them, all right? Yes. And then when we wonder why it takes so long to restore something or to patch something when we need to do those critical things.
Wow. I must tell you, you caught me when you said how Nutanix is able to seamlessly do online patching, making sure that the downtime is reduced from hours to minutes. Truly revolutionary, truly, because I have personally, let's say, been a victim of all of these, traditional or conventional methods of maintaining or capturing data, and then when I lose the data, try to get it back, it's hours of work, right? The machine is doing the work, but then the kind of stress it's putting you through because of the downtime, because these are your productive hours, right? Well,
let me give you an example. Let me give you a way to think about it. Okay, so what we like to call it is consumer grade simplicity in terms of how we manage things. So Apple a while ago invented something called Time Machine, right, to back up your computer. When you see the demo for Time Machine, you're like, wow, I can just go back. And that's what we've done with databases.
Wow.
Okay, that's effectively what we've done. We've given the DBA the power in his hands to use consumer grade like simplicity to manage snapshotting. Okay, consumer grade simplicity to be able to manage upgrades or patches.
And we're talking enterprise data.
We're talking enterprise, Oracle, SQL Server, whatever flavor you've got. Now, the other push that we see is that, there's a big open source movement out there with things like Postgres, where people are saying, do you know what, actually, I want to save money on how I spend on databases. So how do you migrate? Right? That's a big deal. So that migration process, when you've got tooling that we provide to be able to snapshot and quickly restore that database, that gives you the ability to test your migration so that when you punch it and go live with your new database vendor of choice, you can be safe in the knowledge that you've already tested it, because Nutanix gives you that tool.
Okay, well, I can tell you right away that you have a lot of new clients coming your way, based at least on this interview, with a detailed explanation. Wow, I really know a lot of organizations that are working towards making cloud seamless or DBA usage of database, but getting an in-depth about the way Nutanix is working and revolutionizing things. Wow, hats off. Look, I have another question, all right? And I think you kind of have answered this question, but I would like you to shed a little more light on this. Sure. Now, how does database management, right, impact the overall cloud and infrastructure strategy for an organization? Clearly, you did mention about how it helps, with the whole downtime being reduced and all that, but overall, how does the infrastructure strategy for an organization is dealt with when it comes to database management impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you so much. So today you're running a big database platform, and that database platform is based on what I humbly call legacy technology. So when the databases were invented 50, 60 years ago, so was three-tier architecture that was invented about 30 years ago. And people are afraid to do anything because of the scale of compute and storage requirements of a database. Well, that's fine. Today, we look at it from Nutanix as it's just another, albeit large, application that we can modernize. Once we're able to modernize, virtualize, surround it with management, then we're able to pull forward that set of legacy infrastructure into the modern day data center. And once you've done that, all of a sudden, that gives you the choice of where do you want to deploy it, because you're no longer shackled by this old style infrastructure where you need a SAN and you need switching and you need separate compute. We've simplified the requirements. We provide it at fantastic performance, but even better in a cloud-like management experience. So if it's in your data center or it's in the cloud, it doesn't matter to us because we've abstracted that complexity away and provided you a very simple way to deploy, run, manage, retire, redeploy the most complex application you have in your data center.
Wow. Okay. Well, that answers, how it is impacting, the overall strategy, which clearly is not something that can be overlooked. And obviously, like you said, increasing, it's pretty simple. For me, higher the productivity, higher the profitability, which means the organization is growing and you're making their lives easier. So moving on, I think one last question I would like to ask you is,
please,
how do you help customers or your clients reimagine how they manage their database?
Yeah, so anytime we're engaging with a customer, we look at it in terms of three things. So day zero, where are you today? We workshop that, where do you want to be? Okay, so we really want to understand what challenges they have, how it's not meeting or meeting their business objectives. So once we really understand that, we'll then make a day one plan. So what's day one? That's when all the stuff arrives, okay? How can we ensure it's implemented correctly, it's integrated into the complexity of customers have a complex environment. And then the third thing is we don't want to run away. So on day two, how do we look after you, okay? So how do we provide an ongoing engagement, services, health check, patching, how do we look after you? So that your experience with Nutanix from day zero, when you first start to talk to us, day one, when the kit lands and we got to integrate it into your platform, and day two, when it's up and running, you have a fantastic experience that delivers on a positive business outcome. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to spend money in a business, you're going to do it for three things. One, you want to save money, you want to make money, or you want to reduce risk, or maybe a combination of three of them.
Oh, wonderful. Well, the last 3 points you spoke to really like a salesperson, I must say that. But having said that, what I did understand out of the whole conversation is when you onboard a new business, right? When you're getting a new client, your primary focus is not to look at what they have done or what they're using, but to primarily treat it like patient zero, like start from the scratch. We need to understand, and then you are taking them from zero to a level, a notch above, which is going to be perfection, right?
Well, if you shoot for perfection, you might reach the stars. So we definitely want to be in a position where we deliver a wonderful customer experience, and customer experiences are typically based around success, right? That application performs better, is more manageable, there's cost savings, whatever the business objective is. And if I haven't done that, I haven't done my job.
Well, I can tell you today, apart from the technical challenges itself, like all the challenges you mentioned, one of the most important challenge that pretty much every client that I come across is facing is customer service, like the customer success, customer experience. The very root or essence of doing business is missing. And I'm very, very glad that you highlighted that point on how, about how a client will be taken care of when you're in the hands of Nutanix. So thank you so much. I want to understand, I think we've come to a conclusion of our interview. I want to ask you, should you have any closing remarks that you would like to add?
Yeah, so I would just build upon what you said there around customer happiness. So we measure it as best we can with something called NPS, or Net Promoter Score.
Oh, wow.
So Net Promoter Score, so you'll receive a questionnaire. Would you recommend Nutanix in 0 to 10? To get a +1, you'd need to score 9 or 10. If you score a 8 or 7, it's neutral, so 0, and 6 or less is a -1. So the scale can be from -100 to +100. For the last 7 years, Nutanix has an NPS of 90. And
oh, wow.
in the industry, that's pretty hard to maintain. So average IT companies, they're somewhere in the 40s. And let's give someone, who's got really good customer experience, and that would be Apple. Apple's NPS is 70. So we're very proud to have an NPS score of 90. And you know what? We have to earn that every day by providing exceptional engagement with our end users and our partners.
Absolutely. Well, that is really good, especially for a closing remarks. I must tell you, 90 Net Promoter Score, 90 NPS in the last 7 years.
Yes, we've maintained the average at 90.
Compared to organizations like Apple that have 70. Wow, this is amazing. I can tell you right now, though it's time that we sign off and say bye to each other, anybody that is watching this interview or that will be watching as we publish it on different media platforms, they will definitely know who to reach out to when it comes to their data and cloud needs and requirements. So it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Mr. White. Thank you so much for joining us at the GES Talks. I will hopefully wish to see you on the 28th of June at the Global Emerge Tech Summit in Dubai at the Address Dubai Mall. Thank you. See you on the other side. Sign
Thank
off.
you, Mohammed. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.